Welcome back to John Bachman Now. There was a congressional hearing this week, and if you weren't paying attention, you may have missed something pretty astounding. The FBI admitted that it doesn't track Antifa or BLM violence the way it does other types of domestic extremism during a hearing last week titled Confronting Violent White Supremacy, examining the Biden administration's counterterrorism strategy. Quite a mouthful for a title there. The FBI Assistant Director of Counterterrorism, Timothy Langan, was asked by Congresswoman Nancy Mace about the group's activities.
How many acts of violence or domestic terrorism has Antifa committed over the last 2 years?
Since we don't categorize Antifa, nor do we calculate or collate information regarding Antifa, that movement, we don't have that, but we could provide you information on anarchist threats and cases in general.
See what's going on there? Let's welcome in now retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, president of the London Center for Policy Research, also National Security Advisor for the Trump 2020 campaign. Also back with us, U.S. Air Force Major General Mick McGuire. He is a former head of Arizona's National Guard. He is also running for Senate in Arizona. Great to have you with us, Mr. McGuire. First to you, Tony, on this. I know you're not surprised by this, but talk to us about why you think this is problematic, that they're not actively tracking Antifa and BLM violence the same way they are other extremist groups.
So Antifa, if you examine its roots, its objectives, and how it's funded and supported, is the militant wing of the Democrat Party. That's why you don't see it being tracked. That's why you don't see any concerted law enforcement action against it. It has engaged in acts of violence, which has resulted in millions of dollars of loss and death. By all rational definition, if you sit back and look at their actions and you interpret that through the lens of objective truth and definitions, they are a terrorist organization. Members of this organization were launching explosives off the day of President Trump's inauguration. Former director of CIA Jim Woolsey and I were in a vehicle next to where the explosions were going off. That's an act of terror.
Right.
So it's very clear that the FBI doesn't want to track this because it is too close to the folks in power at this point in time. That's why you see a reluctance or basically a refusal to do anything about it.
Is it because, too, that some of the same sources that are funding these groups are tied directly back to some of these Democratic campaigns? I mean, you think about the Minnesota Freedom Fund specifically, which was supported by Kamala Harris, General, and, she is still, I think that her campaign website still links to the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Not only are these people being treated differently in terms of the way the federal prosecutors are handling them, but local law enforcement, too, and sometimes these folks are being released without bond. They're not being prosecuted.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me. I find it surprising that after all that happened last summer, in the summer of 2020, and the violence that we saw in Portland, in Minneapolis, and all the other places that spilled over here when I was the commanding general here in Arizona, we put 1,495 guardsmen in support of 5 county sheriffs and 12 law enforcement entities, even in rural Arizona, yet we're not tracking that as extreme behavior or extremist violent behavior. And then go forward to the time just preceding my retirement, Biden is sworn in, and we're told we have to stand down for an extremism stand down in the military. And my 14 years in command, I adjudicated 0 cases of insider threat and extremism. Yet the Secretary of Defense said this was the #1 threat to readiness, and I had never seen it.
Yeah, and again, we've talked a lot about this. The day that General Milley was lecturing Congress about white rage, there was a report in Reuters that clearly laid out how quickly the Taliban were advancing across Afghanistan. They took their eye off the ball, that being Afghanistan. Let's talk a little bit more about that and the fallout from Afghanistan, because we are now awaiting this pretrial hearing for Lieutenant Colonel Stu Schaller. That's set for today, potentially facing charges for allegedly breaking protocol and violating a gag order for criticizing top military officials. I mean, we can say allegedly, of course. We see the video. It was posted online. Tony, what do you think is going to happen here? He's clearly being targeted. But at the same time, if you look at the code of justice in the military, he broke the rules. So how do you see this?
All right, so he broke the rules, so did Alexander Vindman. Vindman was given a completely different path, one which where he lied under oath, suffered no consequence other than being essentially told behind the scenes to retire. That was what happened. And I've spoken to people close to Stu Schiller. What they is Schiller needs to be given a path forward that allows for him to be a whistleblower. He is a whistleblower. That's it. And so the longer we deny the fact that he's doing the same thing Vindman did for the right reasons in this case, the more I think the Marine Corps has the danger of relitigating. If they go forward with what they want to do, which is to court-martial him, you will see the Afghan war relitigated on the back of the U.S. Marine Corps. I don't think the Marine Corps wants that.
Now, we see this. You talked about Vin. We also talk about this Facebook whistleblower, and she's entitled to protections. Tony, you also have been a whistleblower inside the military. Talk about that real quickly and why you think Lieutenant Colonel Scheller should have those same protections.
Nobody comes forward to do anything except try to state what they've observed to have broken the rules or be illegal or a leadership failure, and then seek to fix it. That's it. That's all a real whistleblower wants to do. That's what Colonel Schiller tried to do. There's no benefit to the individual, John, none. Your life becomes a living hell, and I'm speaking from experience. So Schiller is not seeking that hell. He wouldn't seek it otherwise, except he's trying to fix something that's broken.
General, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, my take is that Lieutenant Colonel Schiller took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, just as Tony and I have. He understands his oath of office, but Tony's right. I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back for him. I've been saying publicly multiple times that General Milley needs to step down and resign and potentially face court-martial action because we have lost confidence in him as the American people. Colonel Scheller speaking out, there's a due process for him to be affixed. I also agree that he should be afforded whistleblower protection, but I think the country needs to focus on the fact that officers are appointed to follow legal, moral, and ethical orders. Yeah. There's nothing moral or ethical about sitting in front of the U.S. Senate and saying this was a logistical failure as people were falling off the side of C-17s, and even one American left behind is too many when we abandoned Bagram. He's not incorrect. This is a complete failing. He's afforded due process, but the account needs to go to Biden, Harris, Blinken, Austin, and Milley. Yeah,
and I think for a lot of folks, civilians and in the military world, when you have enlisted folks paying a higher price for not getting vaccinated than Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, it just looks insane to a lot of folks. Gentlemen, thank you for your insight on this. Colonel Schaefer and General McGuire, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Let's talk a little